Hey guys, today is a video that is a long time in coming. God, with his sense of humor, gave me an unmistakable poke this week to say it's time. So in this video, I share how I made peace with herpes. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Milk and Condoms with Ty Mac. I'm your girl Ty Mac, and today we're going to have a serious conversation that has been a long time coming. One of the reasons that I started this channel, part of what I do in ministry, and keeping it 100% real. And before you judge based on the title of this video, maybe this video is not for me, for you. Maybe this circumstance is not something you find yourself in, but can I please tell you that it is so prevalent in this country, and especially for those of you who are in my age demographic who have teenagers or young people going off to college, or if you're in the young and dating scene. Before you judge too quickly or too harshly, I would advise you to listen in to the end, maybe if not for yourself, but someone you love and you care about, because this topic is real, and the mental and physical ramifications of it can be quite harsh and difficult to deal with. And so there's a lot of people that need to know that you can, first of all, you can avoid this, but certainly you can find peace on the other side of this if you found yourself to be infected with genital herpes, or if someone you know. And so it is so important that this information be shared, and that people know that everything has a stigma. Everybody has done something that they're not proud of. But for those who need to understand how to navigate this very embarrassing disease that is very difficult to have a public conversation about, understand that you can live, you can be healthy, and you can be unashamed, but it's a process. Yeah, so let's get into the video. Okay, so I was in my 20s. I had already graduated from college and was in grad school when I, had the very itchy and painful discovery that I had been infected with genital herpes. I had been dating someone for about a year and a half. There had been at least one incident of infidelity in the relationship that I knew about, but like most women, didn't want to let go. He was fine. He was handsome, and I just was involved in this entanglement with all my emotions, of course, with my body and all kinds of things. I had something to prove, all kinds of things, until this fateful day that I woke up with the unmistakable realization that something down there was real wrong. I've never in my life experienced the type of pain that I experienced. I knew something was wrong. This was not normal. And I really didn't know where to turn. But I thought it could be just a regular kind of female issue. So the school that I went to, they had a extensive health clinic and all that treated everything. And so I've always gone to them when I didn't feel well or whatever, get a little antibiotics, get a little cold stuff, whatever. It was part of our tuition. So, okay, I'm just going to go to campus and see what this is, thinking honestly, because it was really itchy. It wasn't really the pain, it was just really, really itchy. So I'm thinking, just like any girl, oh, it's a yeast infection. Really, to be honest, because the pain didn't come first. The itch was what was first. So I thought it was a yeast infection. So I go to the school health clinic and I'm waiting. And I see the nurse practitioner. You know the routine by now, lady. Get undressed from the waist down. You sit on this table. They put this bright headlight in your cooch and they examine. I'm thinking, okay, it's gonna be a yeast infection. They'll give me a little, tell me to take a little cream, and all's gonna be well. That's normal for girls, right? But when the nurse practitioner, the lady, took a look, she's like, oh, wait, we're gonna have to have a doctor come in and check the diagnosis, just to be sure. And I'm thinking, yeast is yeast. What the doctor got to look at? Aren't you a nurse practitioner? And when the doctor came in, he's like, well, we gotta take a sample, a little scraping, and send it to the lab to confirm our diagnosis. And I'm like, since when y'all scrape your JJ for yeast infection? And then he said, well, get dressed and we'll have you talk to our health nurse practitioner education lady or something. I'm sitting here like, well, doggone, these expensive colleges got all kind of ridiculous position names. Now I got to go sit and talk to somebody about my yeast infection. I'm like, my little black college that I went to, we ain't have all that. But what? So anyway, so I got dressed and I waited my turn. And I went in to talk to this lady, and this lady was like, I'm afraid to tell you. No, I think she asked me, like, when was the last time you had sex? And I'm like, I ain't coming here to talk about my sex life, woman. I came here to get some cream for this yeast infection. Why am I sitting in your office? And she's like, well, the doctor's pretty sure, because we can usually tell this by visual, but we're sending the sample off just to be sure. I'm like, be sure of what? Well, it looks like that you have acquired genital herpes. And I'm looking at this lady, and I hear the words coming out of her mouth. I see her lips moving, but I'm like, say what? Say what? One more time. And she said it again, and I'm like, well, how? I don't understand. And, she started going into this whole explanation of what it was, bringing out these pamphlets, talking about what triggers it, how you have to be careful. Then what she really hit me with was, and it's incurable. Say what? Okay, you really lost me. And then she went into this whole thing about, how it can infect, if you're pregnant, it could, affect the fetus if the baby's born while you have active lesions and stuff. And at this point, I had zoned out. I'm sitting here like, lady, hold on. You just done rocked my whole world, because all I could think about at that point was, I had spent the last several years being sexually active, using that to prove that I had power, that, I almost thought that's kind of where my value lay. It all stems back to my desire to want to take back my power from when I didn't have the power over my decision to when I wanted to become sexually active. And so I felt like from that point on, and I'll do that video. That video is about when I was raped, my first sexual experience. I was raped, and so I'll do that video at some point very soon. But I had made the decision that nobody else was going to take that power away from me. If anything, I was big and bad enough to yield that power myself, and I was going to use it to my advantage. And unfortunately, that didn't work out for me on several occasions, but this being the most serious of those occasions. And I pretty much thought my life was over. I'm like, who's gonna want me? I just didn't know how to move forward from there. And so this lady gave me all these pamphlets. This was back in the day before internet was big and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking 30 years ago, y'all. 30 years ago. And the lady gave me this pamphlets and this prescription, and silly me, she said you can get it filled downstairs in the pharmacy because they had a pharmacy at the health clinic. I handed the prescription to the young lady who was working the counter, who happened to be a black female. And lo and behold, obviously she knew what the prescription was for because I could see her eyebrows raise a little, and she kind of, a smirk came over her face. I was so freaking embarrassed. And then I had to go sit and wait for my prescription to be filled. Meanwhile, itching like a mug. Like, oh my God. Itching, just ridiculous. And when she called my name, I went to get the prescription. I'm thinking, oh, it's $2-3 copay or whatever. That chick says I'm like $50-something, and it wasn't on like insurance plan. $50 for some cream. But you know what? If it's gonna help me down there, let me get it. Let me get out of here, because the sooner I can get out of here, the better. I went home, and it's like, I know I remember shutting up in my room for days. Like, I didn't go to class, I didn't go to work, because I honestly thought my life was over. Like, where do you go from here? Who's gonna want me? You know, how am I gonna move forward? This is so embarrassing. You know, at this point, the itching has stopped and the pain has set in because the sores had burst open, and now they're open to the elements, and that's when the pain really sets in. And this is part of the cycle of the healing process. But you know, you go from the itchy awareness to the becoming wide open, go through the pain before the healing. And wow. All right, God, I hear you. But anyway, so there were days, this was one of those times when suicide was really on my mind. Because who wants to live? Who expects to have a life after this? How do you have this conversation? When do you tell someone this information about you, someone you're interested in? Because I remember wishing that the person had at least told me, so I could make the choice as to whether I wanted to be involved with them intimately. And I knew I never wanted to put anybody in the position to feel that way again. But when do you have this conversation? Is this a first date conversation when you're like, okay, can I have one of your fries? Oh, by the way, I have herpes. Or is this a conversation that you wait 6, 7, 8 months in, when you are, both of you are deep in your feelings, and then you tell this person that this is something that they will have to, if they want to be with you, they would have to figure out how to deal with. By this time, your feelings are all caught up. That's not really fair to a person either. So when is going to be the good time, the best time to share this information? And then trying to figure all that out. I just had nobody to talk to. I wanted it to be over. I was so stressed, in fact, that I dropped out of graduate school. I had gotten a scholarship to pursue my PhD. And I just mentally, I was checked out. I just couldn't sort all those things out in my life. I couldn't sort out the relationship with the person who had infected me. I couldn't sort out just where my life was going, and I just chose to just give up and go home. But there's so much that God has taught me since those days. I remember clearly as I was angry and as I was talking to God in those first couple weeks, the one thing that God told me was, this time herpes, next time death. And that frightened me so bad that I knew he meant it. At that time, I didn't have a really close relationship with God. I'd grown up in the church, all of those things. But when you hear the voice of God, there's no mistaking it. And I was scared. You know, HIV/AIDS was big back then. Still, people were living with it, but there was still a lot of uncertainty. And I didn't think I could take having my world rocked twice. And so I made up in my mind, okay, I heard you, God. I'm not going to take the chances. And of course, that's what we all say when we're trying to negotiate with God. But thankfully, for the most part, I was able to stick to that. And then I met my husband, and that was just God all up in it. I can't even explain it, y'all. But God had prepared him with something that had happened in his family in another way to be accepting of someone with a tremendous secret. Because in fact, this was my secret. Who could I share this with? Couldn't share it with my closest friends. Couldn't share it with my sorority members. Couldn't share it with my family. And so, you know, I did finally tell my best friend. And she understood as much as she could, but again, it was my cross to bear. And so it wasn't until I met my husband, and God had just already prepared him in advance. And I can just say that to anybody who is dealing with this, that you can get through it. I'm 30 years in, 30 plus years in, and eventually pretty much went away. I understood what my triggers were. I understood how to manage the disease. And I really haven't had problems in many, many, many years that really stand out in my mind that I've had issues. I have 3 natural born children, which I feel blessed about, that were not infected. I have been married 26 years. I think this is 27th year, something like that. Okay, don't tell my husband. But, and my husband has not been infected, which is just amazing to me too. Yeah. Yeah. But I make this video and expose myself to let people know that there is peace on the other side of this diagnosis, that you can have life and you can have it more abundantly, but you have to decide that you're going to do things the way that God asked you to do them. You have to listen to that voice. There's a reason for everything. There's a reason. Because of the choices that you made, there's a reason that you have acquired this. Or maybe you acquired it because you had a forced sexual encounter. Whatever reason, you're strong enough to get through this. And going back to what I told you at the beginning of the video, that God has a sense of humor. Honestly, I have, in some ways, felt a little uneasy about doing this video. This is not the first time I've talked about this publicly, but certainly this is a whole different level on this YouTube channel, as opposed to having conversations with a couple hundred people in, you know, an assembly and a conference and a whatever. These people I might never see again. I probably won't ever meet you guys either, but certainly this feels like a wider audience. But why do I share it? Is because every time I'm contacted by someone who has this secret and they have nobody to talk to, and they've heard of my story, or they've read my book, or they've seen, or somebody's referred them and told them, hey, you could talk to her. My heart breaks, because the silence is what's killing us. The bad decisions or the uninformed decisions that we make is what gets people in these predicaments, and it just breaks my heart that this perpetuates. Just yesterday, I had to have the conversation with my last child who's going off to college, to the town where I acquired this disease. I joked with my son and said, listen, when I left Tallahassee, I left with 3 things. I left with a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and genital herpes. Don't let that be you. And as I've done the research lately, I'm looking again, and here we go, college towns and military towns. And a lot of college towns are smaller towns than your average major cities. For example, Tallahassee, Florida is number 14 on this list from like 2018, 2019. It's above Miami. It's above Fort Lauderdale. It's not above New York. So when I'm speaking of sexually transmitted infections, I'm talking not in raw numbers, but I'm talking in percentages of population per 100,000 people. So even though the raw numbers may be less in a town like Tallahassee, the percentage of the population is higher. And I'm also not just speaking of genital herpes, but I am speaking of all sexually transmitted diseases, which makes this even more alarming. Imagine Tallahassee, Florida being number 14 on this list. And if you see the list of top 100, so many college towns, it's so important that we have these conversations with our children. It's so important that we get real, we get honest, we get open, so that, you know, we don't have generations more of people having to navigate these feelings. And to just put their trust in God and know that no matter what your circumstance is, that God will see you through. He will give you peace on the other side of your dumb days. And so I pray that my openness and my willingness to bear myself and uncover my shame and my guilt, I hope it helps someone to heal. Because if you look at me, do I look infected? What does that actually look like? And in the heat of the moment, a lot of people are not trying to figure that out. And so, this is my calling. This is my mission. This is what God has asked me to do. And in obedience, I'm already trusting that somehow my obedience and my faith will bring someone to the saving knowledge of Christ and to the peace that can be had by putting your trust in Him and knowing that He can restore you and you can become a new creation in Christ. But it takes obedience and it takes faith. And it takes you making Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior. It's not that hard. And it's not just the benefit of healing physically, but it's the benefit of eternal life, of peace in spite of your circumstances, of knowing that you are loved when you feel so unlovable. I can't even begin to put into words what that feels like. But I know that if He did it for me, He'll do it for you. If you watched any of my videos before, you already know I'm a crybaby. Sorry, that's just who I am when I think of the goodness of God. These are tears of joy. So I pray that this video blesses you or blesses someone that you know. Go ahead and hit that subscription button. Subscribe to my channel, Milk and Condoms with Ty Mac. If you have questions, you can hit me up in the comments below. If that doesn't feel comfortable to you, you can email me directly through my website, which is www.tymacmotivates.com. That's www.tymacmotivates.com. You can email me through there and I will do my best to respond. But I just pray God's blessing on you and that this message has hit its intended target. Not something I want to go viral, but if the message needs to get out there to help somebody, then you be that person to help somebody get the message. As always, I love you. I'm Ty Mac, and This is Smoking Condoms with Time.